Racism is the belief that all members of each race possess characteristics or abilities specific to that race. Discrimination directed against someone of a different race based on the belief that one's own race is superior.
Institutional racism is a form of racism expressed in the practice of social and political institutions, as distinct from racism by individuals or informal social groups. It is reflected in disparities regarding criminal justice, employment, housing, healthcare, political power, and education, among other things.
Implicit bias refers to the attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understanding, actions, and decisions in an unconscious manner. Racism is prevalent in today's society, whether we acknowledge it or not. The implicit bias is important to consider because it's especially relevant today. Although our society has become increasingly more diverse, we're often unconsciously racist because of stereotypes. Our society has come a long way, but there's still a lot to be done.
Funny how the media covers white riots versus black protests.
Breaking news.
Seems like when the protesters are black, the media uses some pretty harsh words.
The bad guys. Lawlessness, looting,
Wild animals.
Criminals and thugs.
Thugs. Isn't it the right word?
However, if you're white and you're tearing up the city because of a game, you're just young people.
Young people danced on a flipped-over car.
As UK fans did stupid things.
Some maybe got a little out of control.
Seeing a scene like this just shows how passionate the UK fans are.
It's so tough to lose, and unfortunately the ugly side that we sometimes see in sports.
Let's switch the audio and see how it plays out.
Breaking news, violent protest.
What you're looking at is the unraveling of the civil society.
Criminals and thugs.
And they're raising hell, and they're destroying property.
These idiotic thugs, rioting and looting, are hurting their own people.
Wild animals burning buildings down.
Especially if they know the media's all there, right? Got the cameras on everyone. It's become its own reality show.
Who acts like that towards a police officer?
Think for yourself. Don't let racist media color your perceptions. Demand fairness in media coverage.
As seen in this video, when covering similar events such as protests and riots, the media uses different vocabulary depending on the majority race they're referring to. When covering an event that is largely minorities, news organizations tend to use harsh and derogatory terms to describe the scene and those involved. While when the majority race is white, the news organizations tend to make excuses for their actions and see the best of the situation. These disparities in news coverage shows that there is an implicit bias within our society and mainstream media.
This video also shows different actions taken by authorities from previous protests and riots. When white protesters damage property, act violent, and create public disturbances, the police aren't as likely to take action. When black protesters were shown protesting peacefully, the authorities were armed and ready to take action, and oftentimes did so. This proves that not only does our society have an implicit bias, but authority figures do as well.
In the second half of the clip, they switch the audio from news reports of black protests to video footage from white protests and riots. Although it's shocking to hear those terms used when regarding white people, the actions of the white people match the terms used by the news reporters. It's time that we acknowledge people's actions for what they are instead of sugarcoating them because the group is prominently white. We need to acknowledge that we have an implicit bias and change our actions so that people are represented equally.
Although it can be difficult to identify our own implicit biases, the sooner we recognize them, the sooner we can put an end to the racism that still exists in our society.
Recognizing when the media and other news platforms have an implicit bias is important and necessary in stopping it from happening. Speaking up for the people that are misrepresented will help eliminate further racism.
This discrimination isn't something we should be okay with or accept just because it may not affect you directly. It's everyone's job to hold each other accountable.